Hi, my name is James O'Hara, and I'm a resident here at the Masters. I'm finally standing in front of one of the new windows from the window wall pilot project. Over the next few minutes, we're going to show you some of the details regarding the installation process, and we hope to explain some of the challenges along with the important items we learned throughout that process. The Masters condominium was built in 1976, more than 45 years ago. Many Masters residents have lived through major restoration projects in the past. This would include the garage restoration from 2000 to 2013 and a balcony restoration in 2018 and 2019, and a host of other major projects. It's very likely that one of the next major projects is the replacement of the 46-year-old windows at the Masters. While there's no doubt the windows will need to be replaced at some point in time, the decision of how and when to replace them is very complex. This is because the project involves a number of different factors, which is one of the main reasons for this video. Before we go any further, let's be clear. The Board of Directors has not yet decided to proceed with the windows project. So far, the board has only decided to investigate how to replace the windows, if at some point in the future they decide to proceed. At this point, leakage issues are somewhat manageable, but the investigation has shown that the windows do not meet today's building code standards. So even if the board did decide to proceed, there are still many implementation decisions that need to be made.
So in these exploratory mock-ups, we have suites where we are replacing the door, we have suites where we're not replacing the door, so we can learn what detailing is required for each of those cases.
To figure out the next steps, the board sought out and received 3 volunteers in the community who allowed windows in their units to be replaced. To be candid, this process didn't exactly go well. But through the exercise, we learned important points along the way that we wouldn't have discovered otherwise. The first of which is never do construction in the middle of a pandemic.
We had major delays with window suppliers. Everything is in back order, from the paint, from the glass, from the aluminum. Price is changing every day, and etc. But luckily, we got to this point that we're seeing light in tunnel.
So a project that was intended for November 2021 is still not complete. Second, no 2 windows at the Masters appear to be alike. Even those that initially seem to be the same have minute differences. This is due to the various construction stages of the building that took place over several years, along with the subsequent settling of the building, which is typical of any structure. Standardizing window sizes will require flexibility in their installation. There's asbestos in the drywall joint compound surrounding the windows, so asbestos removal is required even before the work begins. The process of removing old windows and replacing them with new is complex at the best of times. In the 3 separate units, there were unique issues in each. Some windows were supported at the top and the bottom, but not the sides. In others, the concrete some windows sit on had literally disintegrated due to water leakage. There was concern that some windows would not fit through the front door and entryway of some units. This would require them to be hoisted up on an access stage to the balcony. While this was anticipated, it was not an issue on the test installations, but it could have an impact with other unit layouts. Honestly, the list goes on and on. So here's what we learned. Once installed, the new windows are very aesthetically pleasing, much quieter, and are significantly more energy efficient. The process is slow, noisy, dusty, and disruptive, and would require residents to move their furniture.
How did we do the finish?
How you finish though?
Should this or future boards choose to go forward with the windows replacement project, there are many alternatives in how to proceed, and all with their own pros and cons. For example, a board might choose to proceed with window replacement only when a resident is leaving and another is moving in. However, that would significantly impact costs, as we would not be able to take advantage of the economies of scale. It's clear that the windows at the master will need to be replaced at some point. When and how is the question that the current and subsequent boards will need to address. The cost of energy is not going down, nor are construction costs. And according to Statistics Canada, the cost of construction is anticipated to rise by 4.5% per year for the foreseeable future. Choosing to delay the project is an option. However, in addition to higher costs, many residents wouldn't enjoy the benefits and potential energy savings that new windows would provide. Clearly, this is an important question with serious cost and quality of life implications for the master's residents. The value of our units will be seriously affected by this decision, and that too needs to be factored in. Attached are some clips from our engineer and construction company about what they found. We hope it will help you understand some of the questions and how there are more questions to be addressed.
So with this project, what we're doing is a number of exploratory mock-ups. So there are three main things we are trying to learn with these exploratory mock-ups. Number one is there are a number of different glazing system configurations. Number two is the challenge with the PTAC units. So we're trying to determine that if there is a new glazing system in place, how difficult it would be to install new PTAC units, and potentially if we're reusing some of the PTAC units and sleeves, how can they interface with the new glazing system? So we're trying both. We're trying new glazing systems with existing PTAC units and new PTAC units. And the third challenge we're looking at is there's a little bit of a challenge with the doors at this complex, given that they're unit owned. Most of the complaints seem to revolve around air leakage, water leakage, condensation, and noise. You're looking at somewhere between 10 to 20% savings, energy savings with new replacement windows. And that's not only because thermally they're more efficient, but it's also because you're usually cutting down on a lot of the drafts and a lot of the air leakage. So there's a lot of heat loss and so forth just associated with air leakage on its own. Yeah, I'd say the biggest challenge is the PTAC units. The existing sleeves are a little problematic in terms of the way they're installed through the glazing systems. So that is a problematic detail. We're trying to do a different detail here where we have a full metal back pan, which is basically a metal closure in the opaque part of the glazing system. So there's actually an inner metal, an outer metal, where the outer seal is intended to provide the water shedding, the inner seal is intended to provide the air seal. So we're finding, some suites that have been potentially renovated where there's metal studs, some fiberglass insulation with some polyethylene sheeting, and then some drywall. We're finding other construction which appears to be potentially more on the original side, which is just a fiberglass insulation with a craft. It looks like some sort of a craft facer on it, which was intended, during original construction for this building, it would have been intended to provide some vapor control so that interior humidity is not diffusing through and potentially condensing on the precast. Unfortunately, what we're finding is some of the air seals. Back when this building was constructed, there was not a lot of attention to, let's say, air barrier continuity, whereas in modern construction, there's more attention to providing air seals around your interior, either your interior finishes or in your wall assemblies. So there is some opportunities here. There are some gaps we're seeing. There's opportunities for air to get behind, let's say, the drywall, behind the fiberglass face insulation and condense on some of the precast. And that has been reported in some other suites that there are some of those concerns. These exploratory evaluations right now are really targeted towards dealing with the glazing systems and the perimeters. So over the years, they're a lot more stringent in terms of energy efficiency and thermal performance within wall assemblies. In modern buildings would be a lot more insulation. And also the other big challenge is the air barriers. So for the most part for this building, it's really just the precast concrete panels, the joint seals between them, the windows and the seals around them that are really trying to provide most of the airflow control from inside to outside. So in these exploratory mock-ups, we have suites where we are replacing the door, we have suites where we're not replacing the door, so we can learn what detailing is required for each of those cases. The old construction was just a number of metal closures, which in some cases aren't very well sealed, so you it has led to air and water leakage. Well, what we're finding so far is that we're able to effectively tie in the new window systems to the wall, like the different glazing systems to the surrounding wall assemblies. We've come up with some effective detailing for both securement, for air and water tightness, so far things are going well. For the sleeve, we have a plan in place. We're still in the process of implementing it to see exactly how it's going to work, but we have a plan in terms of, like I said, in terms of cutting the metal on the inside, the outside, and we're in the process of implementing it. So far I'm optimistic that we can make this work. Absolutely.
There's a lot of important information here for residents to digest. I hope you found it useful. As I hope we were clear to say, no decision has yet been made. And even if the current board were to make a decision to proceed, there are multiple ways a board could choose to go forward. And all those scenarios would have to be given careful consideration. There's no denying, however, that at some point the windows will have to be replaced. The key point is that through the pilot process, we now have a better understanding of what we will eventually be getting ourselves into. Thank you for watching. I'm James O'Hara.